Hello, this is Ali with the Perception Trainers, and today we are going to talk about why not all truths are the truth, or not all teachings are the truth, and why not all truths apply to you. Alright? So, because we live in the world that we live in now, right? Where information is completely available to everyone anytime, anywhere, right? At the click of a button, you can discover literally any teaching that exists on the planet right now. You can come into contact with any source of information, right? As spiritual beings who are looking to evolve and looking to grow and looking to change and looking to expand, many of us out there, right, are very busy taking in a lot of information, right? We are very busy reading a lot of books, listening to a lot of talks, reading a lot of theories, going to a lot of seminars, going to a lot of workshops, meditating, doing all these things, taking in a lot of information, okay? And this is awesome in some ways, right? Because, you know, having access to this information in the physical reality oftentimes helps to accelerate our growth. Because in the past, right, we would have need to have received this information psychically, which, you know, is definitely harder to do, requires more discipline. Less people were really interested in doing that, right? Like, there were definitely fewer people who were willing to sit and meditate for hours and hours a day than there are people who are willing to do a YouTube search to find a video on a subject that they're looking at, right? And so, right, more and more people can have more and more information now. And in a way, that's good, right? Because it's helping us to grow and it's helping us to become more conscious. It's helping us spread ideas faster. And that's really awesome, because before we would have need to have gotten it psychically or through a teacher, which is much slower, right? But the thing is that with the old path, right, needing to get things psychically or through a teacher or through a teaching that we like physically find in our physical reality, it was far less likely that we were going to find information, number one, that was incorrect, right? Because most of the information was sacred, right? Back in history, information was sacred. It wasn't so easy to just spread information. Writing something down or making a book or passing it along verbally was a far more laborious process, right? And in so much because of that, information was far more sacred. Information was far more rare, right? Like these kind of spiritual insights and these spiritual tools and all of these things for consciousness expansion was just far more sacred, okay? And far more rare, and like I say that. So because it has become so readily available, all right? This means that there's far more room for incorrect teachings to get spread, all right? Because in the past, right, because information was sacred, and because information was rare, and because information was literally passed on from a teacher to a student, right? It was far less likely for that information to be incorrect because the person that was passing it on was practicing it, all right? In today's world, you can hear something like about the law of attraction, right? You can read The Secret, and you can think, okay, well, that must be true because I read it, and then you start spreading it, and then people listen to you, and they start believing it and spreading it, and no one's actually practicing what the book The Secret teaches, and actually seeing, does this align with reality? Does this actually work? Is this really true, or is it just something that we're saying, right? Because it sounds nice. It sounds nice to think that I can sit there and think about getting $1 million and then $1 million is going to come to me. And I want to believe that. And lots of people want to believe that. So we're all going to keep spreading it. We're all going to keep talking about it. And then people are going to be very upset and very confused at why it doesn't work and why they're sitting around thinking about $1 million and they're still poor. So this is the first thing, right? Is that because we live in a world where it is so easy to spread information that has not been practiced, right? It is very easy for incorrect teachings to be spread around by people that are like really high up there or that look really respectable, okay? Because most people are not really taking the time to actually test out the theories that they're spreading, to actually really practice and really put into practice what is going on, and with an objective mindset, right? Because a lot of the times we take on a teaching and we want to believe it so badly that we can even convince ourselves that it's working in a way by ignoring evidence that supports that it doesn't work and believing evidence that supports that it does work and saying, well, this is the only evidence that really exists and I'm going to ignore all this kind of anomalous stuff because that's not on my graph. I don't want to believe that, right? And so this is kind of how we get there, right? So this is the first thing to understand. This is why not all teachings are true. Because really, in today's day and age, people are not spending time with a teaching. Like, we don't have people who get a teaching and then put it into practice for a couple of weeks or months or years to really see if it works and use, their whole consciousness to really test out the theory and then pass it along, right? We hear something we like, we say, yeah, okay, that must work, or, I kind of did sort of something a little bit with it and it sort of kind of worked, so it's true and now we're going to spread it, right? So that's what's happening. So that's the first thing. We need to understand that, not everyone is spreading true information, not maliciously, right? People are not doing this because they want to screw people over or they want to tell them something that's not true or anything like this. It's never that. It's just that people aren't practicing anymore, right? It is very rare to come across a teacher or someone who's truly living what they're preaching, because it's hard to do that. It requires discipline to do that. And like I said, this is why we had so many fewer spiritual people in past generations, because it required that you actually live it, and that's work, and it's discipline to sit there and meditate all day. It's discipline to sit there and raise your consciousness. It's discipline to do all these things. Nowadays, like I said, anyone could read a book and watch a seminar and blah 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 and say, yeah, I'm a spiritual teacher because I heard all these things, right? It's very easy to preach it and not live it. And therefore, it's very easy to spread ideas that are not true, right? That just simply do not work, that are not in alignment with the truth of reality, because we like the sound of it and we want to believe it, right? So that's the first thing. Always understand that whenever you take on a teaching from anybody, okay, this is not to say you judge the teacher. It's just to say, before you would accept anything as truth, you must put it into practice. You have to be willing to use a discipline to put that theory into practice, and you have to be willing to say, okay, no, this didn't work, right? You have to be willing to practice something with an open mind. So practice something without deciding before you're practicing it whether it works or doesn't. Okay, you have to be willing to say, okay, I don't know if this is going to work. Just because this person told me it's going to work doesn't mean that it is going to work. It just means that this is a new idea and it interests me, so I'm going to put it into practice. I'm going to use discipline to use this one teaching and put it into practice and see what happens. And if it really doesn't work, if I really put it into practice and it doesn't work, I'm going to assume that teaching is incorrect. Stop assuming that you're wrong. Okay, so that's the first thing. Stop assuming that you're wrong, that all the teachings that you're hearing work, and that there's something wrong with you that you can't make it work. Okay? There are definitely people out there who are teaching teachings that sound good to them, that they want to believe, that aren't necessarily true because they aren't using discipline to practice the teaching before they put it out there as information. Okay? So you have to use your discipline. You have to use your power of discernment. You have to use I'm going to put this into practice rationally, right? I'm not going to overlook for evidence, and I'm not going to ignore evidence. I'm going to take everything into account, and if something truly works, if a teaching is really true, it's going to work. Okay? It's going to work every time. So if a teaching doesn't work, or it doesn't work every time, there's holes in it, and you need to realize that. Okay? Second thing, as we're going on our journey, people often get confused about the idea that even if something is true, it might not be true for you right now. Okay? And I understand why that can be confusing, because you think, well, if something's the truth, right? If a teaching is true, then it should be true all the time. It should always apply. I should be able to apply any teaching that I hear that is true, and it should work for me right now. And I'm going to say, okay, let's look at this analogy of traveling to help us understand why not every teaching applies to you in this moment, even if it is true. Okay? So if you are going from New York to LA, right? You are going to have a set of instructions, right, on your GPS, say, that tell you the directions, the roads to take, the turns to make, in order to get you from New York to LA, all right? Now, the directions that you're going to get out of your GPS when you're in Boston, right, are going to be very different directions than the directions you get when you're over in Las Vegas. Yes? Right? The driving directions from New York to LA will be different coming out of your GPS when you're in Boston than they will be when you are in Las Vegas, right? If you are in Boston and you try to apply the driving directions that you would be using while you're in Las Vegas, you're going to get lost. It does not apply. Those roads don't exist where you are. Yes? If you try and apply Boston directions while you're in Las Vegas, it's no longer relevant, right? You've passed those roads. It's not going to help you get from Las Vegas to LA, right? And this is exactly how it is on our journeys through our spiritual awakening, okay? You are not going to be at the same place all the way through. You are going to be going through different segments, different experiences, different roads, different paths, and so there are going to be teachings that fully apply to you where you are today, that in 10 years are going to have nothing to do with you, okay? So these teachings are true for now. They are not necessarily relevant forever. There are absolutely some teachings and some truths that are ultimate teachings and truths, and those are rare, okay? There are not a lot of those. Most of the teachings that we have that are really true and that really work, okay, are based on where you are, all right? So this is why we cannot look out there and say that, this teaching is always right or this teaching is always wrong. It's not like that, all right? It totally depends on where you are. And that's why just taking in all this information and assuming that all of it's right is a mistake, but also assuming that all of it applies to where you are right now is a mistake, because it doesn't, all right? So, like I say, there may be teachings that totally apply to me right now where I am, that I'm telling you, that have nothing to do with where you are, that have nothing to do with what's going on in your life right now, and are completely irrelevant to you. Either you've already done this or you're not here yet. Or I might be teaching teachings that are for a specific path that you're not even on, right? You might not be going on the journey that takes you from New York to LA, where you go through Boston and you go through Las Vegas. You might go up through Canada, right? Like you could be on a totally different path. And then so again, many of the things that were relevant to me on my journey aren't going to be relevant to you on your journey, because your journey is different, right? And so that doesn't make my truths any more incorrect or yours any more incorrect. It makes them different, right? So with all that being said, how does one discern when a teaching is really true? Okay, so first things first. Whenever you hear a teaching, I think first things first is this. If you are wise, and you want to be wise, and you really want to raise your consciousness, it is not about the amount of information that you take in, okay? It is not about binge watching YouTube videos. It is not about continually reading books and taking in more and more information and looking at everyone else's perspectives and da-da-da-da-da, okay? Because all that's going to do is oversaturate you, okay? And you're not going to have the time and the energy and the endurance in order to actually practice and process and go through all of these teachings to see if they actually work. And you're not going to have the ability to practice and process and take these teachings into your being so that it can actually teach you something, okay? What you want to do is you want to pick a teaching. Pick something that resonates with you, okay? And first and foremost, sit with it. Don't do anything about it at first, okay? Because when we are on our path, right, remembering that we are increasing our frequency, right? We are taking what is dense and making it less dense. And that is a journey and that is a process. So when we hear a teaching at first, okay, it will be exciting, it will be awesome, like you're going to feel that frequency, or you might feel nervous or scared or like you kind of want to run away from it. Either way, it doesn't really matter, right? First thing that you want to do is you just want to sit with the vibration of that teaching, okay? And if you sit with the vibration of a teaching for a couple of days or, a little while, and it really just feels super uneasy to you and terrible, like there's no kind of like exciting feelings, there's no, like I say, it might make you nervous, it might make you scared because you're heading somewhere that you haven't been before and you're stretching somewhere that you haven't stretched before, and a good teaching and a good truth that you're ready for is going to do that. It'll make you feel a little nervous, it'll make you feel a little, but there's going to be an underlying peace about it. There's going to be an underlying excitement about it. There's going to be an underlying yeah, okay, this is definitely the right next step for me, okay? If the thing makes you feel manic, right? If it makes you feel like, yeah, that's it, like, blah, 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 this is going to change my life. Or if it makes you feel totally heavy and down and drained, or if it really ignites like a super deep fear feeling in you, then let that go. Okay? Either that's not the teaching for you right now, or that's your emotional guidance system telling you this is just not a true teaching. And so really sit with the frequency of the teaching first. Before you try and apply it, before you decide it's right or wrong, before you even, invest anything in it, just invest some time feeling into it. All right? And so like I say, it might make you nervous, but if there's an underlying excitement or an underlying joy or an underlying relaxation, okay, then it moves on to the next step. Okay? And the next step is, whatever that teaching is, okay, your first step in that teaching is always going to be to admit that you don't know the path. You don't know the path. You don't know where this is headed. You know that this teaching is exciting. You know that it sounds great. You don't know the path, and you don't really know where it's leading you. Okay? So you're going to have to surrender to the teaching. Right? And that's a big, scary step that most people don't like to take. They really want to know where the whole path is going to lead before they even take on a teaching. Okay? They know they want to get to self-love, and they know, like, they have this feeling that this teaching is going to do that, but you don't know the path. Okay? So that is the big first thing, is that a true teaching, all right, is going to be meeting you where you are right now, and it's going to be the next thing that you receive from this teaching is going to be the next most obvious step. Okay? It's not going to be a huge vibrational jump, a huge mental jump, a huge shift from where you are today. Okay? So like I say, it's not going to be you going from eating a standard American diet to being on a raw foods diet and you meditate for 4 hours every day. Okay? That is not the next step for you, right? That does not feel like the most obvious next thing to do. Right? So if someone is telling you that's what you need to do, and it feels like totally overwhelming and scary, or makes you feel manic, like, yeah, I'm going to do that, that's not the right teaching, right? You're not going to jump from the bottom of the mountain to the top of the mountain, okay? So if you get on a path and you get on a teaching and you're saying, okay, I know where I'm headed, right? I know I want to be at self-love. I know I want to be at this, like, awesome healed place. I know I want to be at whatever. But the first step doesn't take me there, right? It doesn't get me to the top of the mountain. It doesn't get me healed right now. Then you're probably on the right path, okay? Because it's going to be a journey. You're going to take steps. It's not going to be New York, LA. It's going to be New York, Boston, and all the states in between, okay? So if the teaching is truly, truly right for you, it almost might seem too easy. That is what I want you to understand, okay? It's going to seem too obvious. It's going to seem too easy. It's going to seem too close to where you are right now, and not close enough to where you want to be. And that is a good thing, okay? Take the teaching. Feel what it feels like in your body for a couple of days. If it feels relaxing and exciting, a little scary, that's the teaching for you. And then the next step on the journey should be something obvious. It should be, again, so if you're on a super standard American diet and you're wanting to heal and become, super awesome, it's not, raw foods diet tomorrow, okay? It's going to be, maybe I'm going to replace the, milk chocolate that I eat with dark chocolate, right? It's going to be something like that, right? It's going to be a step like this, one step, right? And then you'll get used to that. Your frequency will shift, right? Your vibrational density will lift a little, and then the next step will present itself, and the next step will present itself, and the next step will present itself. So you have to be willing to take the journey. So don't binge watch teachings. Pick a teaching. Feel what it feels like. Adopt it, then practice it. Okay? Use your discipline to take each step of the journey. Take each step of your path. Take the teaching, apply it until the next teaching comes. That is the next most logical step for you. All right? That is how this works. Don't try and get to the end today. You're not going to get to the end today. You need, so you can understand what your destination is. I know I want to get to self-love. I know I want to get to enlightenment. Whatever. That's fine. Then you have to trust the path. You have to do one step at a time. You have to do the step that's right in front of you, that feels exciting and a little bit scary, but within your range of comfort, okay? Within your range of doability, within your range of sustainability, right? If you take on teaching that you're just like, yeah, no, I'll never be able to do that for the rest of my life, it's not the teaching for you right now, okay? So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them down below. I'd love to hear from you. Like, subscribe, join our Patreon. We meet 3 times a month, and it's really great and super fun. Find me on all my social media. It's all down below. And I think that's it. So yeah, see you in the next video. And